They tipped over a girl in a wheelchair and laughed, but 30 minutes later, someone made sure they never laughed like that again. It happened fast. Too fast for anyone to stop it, but not too fast to forget. The sun was out over Jefferson Middle School in Mesa, Arizona. Lunch had just started, and the concrete yard behind the cafeteria buzzed with noise. Kids running, sitting in groups, tossing footballs, sneaking sips of soda they'd smuggled from home. It was just another Tuesday, but for one girl, it would turn into something else entirely. Her name was Emily Rosen. 6th grade, quiet, smart. The kind of kid who always had a book on her lap and never interrupted a conversation. She used a wheelchair, not that it stopped her from moving around or trying to be part of things, but it made her different. And at this school, different was all it took. She rolled herself over to the far edge of the blacktop near the fence. She liked it there, less noise, more space to think. She was picking at the Velcro on her lunchbox when the voices came. "Hey, Wheels!" one of them shouted. 3 boys, 8th graders, known trouble. Tall, loud, the kind of kids who felt big when others felt small. Emily stiffened. She looked up, and for a second she tried to smile, maybe thinking it was just a dumb joke. Maybe they'd leave. They didn't. "Where are you headed? Pit stop?" The second one snorted, circling behind her chair like a shark in a pool. "Bet she runs on AA batteries," the third chimed in, laughing, as he reached down and tugged her backpack off the handles. Emily tried to grab it, but they were too quick. "Give it back," she said. Not shouting, not whining, just asking. Calm, like she'd practiced. But the leader, everyone called him Brent, wasn't interested in calm. He leaned forward, his face close. "Make me," he grinned. And then it happened. One hard shove. That's all it took. The wheelchair tilted. The front casters caught on a crack in the pavement. Her books flew one way. Emily flew the other. She hit the ground sideways, elbows first, cheeks scraping against the warm concrete. A sharp gasp rose from a few students nearby. One girl covered her mouth. A boy started to step forward, then stopped when Brent glared at him. For a moment, no one moved. Emily lay there, one shoe off, a scrape blooming red across her forearm. She didn't cry. She didn't even yell. She just started pulling herself upright, reaching for the chair that now rested on its side. And the 3 boys, they laughed. Not loud, not wild. That low, ugly kind of laugh that makes your stomach turn. Then they walked off, high-fiving each other. No adults were around. No teacher saw it. The nearest aide was on the other side of the yard, scrolling on her phone. A group of 7th graders watched from the lunch tables. Some whispered. Some turned away. 1 or 2 looked guilty. No one helped, except one girl. Farther down the yard, standing still, arms folded across her chest, was a 12-year-old named Kennedy Monroe. She wasn't tall, she wasn't loud, but she saw everything. She'd been watching since the first joke, and when the wheelchair hit the ground, her jaw tightened. Not out of anger, not out of fear, out of something deeper. She didn't rush over, she didn't shout, she just watched. And then slowly, she turned and walked away. Not because she didn't care, but because she was thinking. But what Kennedy did next, that's the part no one expected. Kennedy Monroe was the kind of kid you didn't notice, until you did. She wasn't flashy, she didn't chase attention. But if you paid close enough attention, there was something about the way she moved, the way she stood, like she didn't need to be the loudest person in the room to know who she was. She lived with her mom and older brother in a small apartment off Dobson Road, about 10 minutes from school. Her morning started early, up by 5:30, stretching by 6. Taekwondo practice wasn't just something she did, it was how she lived. Discipline first. Always, her instructor, Master Joe, told her, power means nothing if your mind's not in the right place. She took that seriously. Every belt she'd earned, white to yellow, yellow to green, all the way to first-degree black, was built on that. So when Kennedy saw what happened to Emily, she didn't react on instinct. She took it in, all of it. The bullies, the silence, the kids who turned away, the grown-ups who didn't even look up. It wasn't that she didn't want to help. She wanted to make sure she did it right. At lunch, she sat at her usual spot under the shady tree near the far fence. A few friends were there, Raya, Sean, Leilani. They were laughing about a video from earlier that morning. Kennedy wasn't laughing. She kept her eyes on the building across the yard, the one the 8th graders always hung around after eating. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Brent and his crew were posted up against the wall, laughing like kings of the school. Raya nudged her. You good? Kennedy didn't answer right away. Then she asked, You saw what they did? Raya lowered her voice. Yeah, it was messed up. But what can we do? Kennedy looked down at her tray. A piece of orange had rolled off the edge. She picked it up, wiped it clean. Something, she said. But she didn't say what, because Kennedy knew what something meant for her. She wasn't just going to tell a teacher. She wasn't going to record a video and post it online for likes. And she definitely wasn't going to fight, not unless she had no other choice. She was going to make it count. And when she did, everyone would understand what real strength looked like. Her brother Trey once told her, You're not like me, Kay. I used to fight because I was angry. You fight because you got control. That's different. She remembered that now. As the bell rang and lunch ended, kids poured back inside. Kennedy moved slow. She watched Brent laugh with his crew, retelling what they did like it was some kind of joke. That's when it clicked. They didn't think they did anything wrong. They thought they were funny, and that was worse. But what those boys didn't know, Kennedy had already decided exactly how this was going to end. By the time 7th period rolled around, the story had started to spread. Not like wildfire, more like smoke from a trash can fire. Quiet, nasty, hard to ignore. Kennedy sat in science class trying to focus on a lesson about ecosystems. Mr. Landry was talking about balance, how every piece matters, how if one thing breaks, the whole system can fall apart. She stared at the diagram on the board, but her mind kept drifting. Because 2 rows behind her, Brent was whispering, loud enough to hear if you were close. They should give her a backup wheel or something, he snorted. One of the others, the skinny one with braces, laughed way too loud. Yo, the way she fell, though, like a tipped shopping cart. Kennedy clenched her pencil so hard it cracked. She didn't turn around. She didn't even blink. Instead, she slid her pencil case open and grabbed another, kept taking notes. Sean sat beside her. He leaned over. You hearing this? Kennedy nodded once. Sean lowered his voice. They're not stopping, even after all that. I know. You gonna tell someone? No. Sean sat back. He knew Kennedy, knew that tone. It didn't mean she was ignoring it. It meant she was preparing. After class, in the hallway, it got worse. Brent and the boys stood by the lockers like they owned the place. One was filming himself retelling the story like it was comedy gold. The caption on his phone read, When wheels hit the eject button. Kennedy stopped walking. She turned. There were people around now. Not everyone, but enough. A few from band, 2 from the basketball team, some 6th graders, and Emily. She had just come out of the counselor's office. Someone must have reported what happened. Her hair was a little messed up, and her sleeve had a bandage on it, but she held herself straight. She kept her head up until she saw Brent. He smirked. Hey, look who rolled through. A couple of kids laughed nervously, but most just stayed quiet. Emily didn't say anything. She tried to turn her chair away. And that's when Kennedy stepped forward. She wasn't loud. She didn't rush. She just moved. Step by step, straight through the circle of kids until she was standing a foot from Brent. He looked down at her like she was part of the joke. You got something to say, Monroe? He asked, puffing his chest out. Kennedy blinked slowly. Yeah, I do. Brent chuckled. Oh, you mad about wheels? She nodded. You call her that one more time, and we're going to have a different conversation. Brent turned to his friend. Yo, is she threatening me? Kennedy looked him dead in the eye. Not a threat, a warning. The hallway went still. The air shifted. Brent stepped forward. You gonna swing, black belt? She didn't move. You want me to. But I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to stop you. He squinted, confused. Stop me from what? From thinking this makes you tough, she said. From thinking hurting someone smaller than you makes you funny. From acting like you didn't just knock over a girl in a wheelchair and laugh about it. Brent's jaw flexed. No one cares. You think teachers are going to do anything? Kennedy took a breath. They might not, but I will. He laughed again, but it was thinner this time, not so sure of himself. Then Kennedy stepped in closer. You know I'm trained, right? She said quietly. But I've also been taught that real strength means knowing when not to use it. You're lucky I learned that. Brent didn't say anything. Behind them, Emily watched. Her hands clenched the wheels of her chair. Her eyes didn't blink once. Kennedy turned and walked away. She didn't yell, she didn't fight. But the hallway was silent now. And Brent? He wasn't laughing anymore. But the real shift hadn't even started yet. That came after the teachers found out. The thing about a school like Jefferson Middle is that news doesn't stay quiet for long, especially when it's wrapped in heat. By the time the final bell rang, word had spread. Not just about the wheelchair, not just about Brent, but about Kennedy Monroe. How'd she stand there like that? She didn't flinch. She stared him down and he backed off. Kids whispered all the way to the buses. Texts flew, rumors twisted. Some said Kennedy threatened to break his arm. Others said she told him she'd report him to the police. None of that was true. But the truth? That she stood her ground without raising her voice? That's what stuck. She didn't walk straight to the bus that afternoon. Instead, she headed toward the gym. She needed space to move, to breathe. The mat smelled like rubber and dust, but it was familiar, safe. She set down her backpack, slipped off her shoes, and started her forms. Slow, focused. Each motion like a sentence she couldn't speak out loud. Front stance, down block, step forward, inner forearm block, turn. Miss Monroe. The voice was sharp, female, measured. Kennedy turned. At the gym door stood Assistant Principal Darby, slim with sharp eyes and a clipboard like it was part of her arm. Come with me. No room for questions. They walked down the quiet hallway together. The sun had dipped by now, casting long streaks of orange through the windows. Darby didn't speak until they entered her office. Seated at the small round table, Brent, his mother, a counselor, and Principal Vargas, eyes tired behind his glasses. Kennedy sat. Darby didn't waste time. There's been a report of a confrontation in the hallway today. Kennedy folded her hands. Yes, ma'am. Do you want to explain? So she did, not with drama, just facts. What happened? What was said? What wasn't done when Emily was shoved? What wasn't stopped? Brent shifted in his seat, arms crossed, but his usual grin was gone. His mom kept her hand on his shoulder, lips pressed thin. You didn't touch him? The counselor asked. No, I didn't have to. Principal Vargas looked over his glasses. And why do you think that is? Kennedy looked him straight in the face. Because he already knew he was wrong. There was a long pause. Darby broke it. You understand that threatening language is still considered a violation of school policy. I didn't threaten him. Brent finally spoke. She tried to intimidate me. Kennedy turned to him. You tipped over a girl in a wheelchair. I stood in front of you. If that's intimidating, maybe you should think about why. Brent didn't answer. He stared at the floor. Vargas sighed and leaned back. Miss Monroe, you'll need to write a formal statement. There will be no suspension, but we do expect you to follow the proper channels in the future. Kennedy didn't argue. She understood the system. But she also knew this. The grown-ups hadn't seen the shove. They hadn't heard the laughs. They were cleaning up after the fire, not stopping the match from being lit. As she stood to leave, Brent's mom turned to her. I'm sorry, she said quietly, for what he did, for what you had to do. Kennedy nodded. Thank you. She didn't need an apology, but it helped. Outside the office, Emily was waiting. She was sitting by the vending machines, hands in her lap. Her cheeks still had a red mark. One of the wheels on her chair was smudged with dirt. Kennedy walked over and crouched beside her. You okay? She asked. Emily nodded. Yeah. They sat in silence for a minute. The hum of the vending machine buzzed above them. Then Emily asked, Why'd you do it? Kennedy thought for a second. Because no one else did. Emily looked down. I don't know why they laughed. Kennedy leaned back against the wall. People laugh when they don't know what else to do, or when they want to hide how scared they are. Emily nodded. She rubbed her wrist gently. Kennedy pointed. That still hurt? A little. You want me to walk you out? Emily smiled. Yeah, that'd be cool. They moved slowly down the hall, Emily pushing herself while Kennedy walked beside her. Kids looked at them, some with guilt, some with respect, some with plain curiosity. It didn't matter, because something had shifted. Kennedy hadn't just stood up for Emily. She'd made it harder for anyone to look away next time. But that shift didn't fix everything. Not yet. There were still questions left unasked, and a conversation still waiting to happen. By Thursday, you could feel it in the air. Not tension exactly, but attention. For once, people were actually looking at each other, at themselves. Kennedy noticed it as soon as she stepped onto campus. She wasn't used to stares, but now, people watched her walk, watched the way she stood. Even some teachers gave her that look, the one adults use when they don't know if they should say thank you or be careful. She kept her head down. She didn't need a spotlight, but she also didn't run from it. That morning in homeroom, Mr. Whitaker cleared his throat and said, "We'll be having an assembly Friday about kindness and student safety." Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. A few rolled their eyes. Kennedy looked across the room and saw Brent, sitting in the back, arms folded. His crew was smaller now. Two of them hadn't shown up since Tuesday. Another sat at a different table altogether. Brent caught her glance, but didn't hold it. At lunch, Emily sat at a new table. Not alone this time. Some sixth-grade girls had invited her over. Kennedy spotted her smiling, small but real. Sean walked up to Kennedy's table with 2 orange Gatorades. He handed her one. "You think he's going to come at you again?" he asked. Kennedy shook her head. "He won't." Sean raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" She nodded. "He knows what'll happen if he does." Sean paused. "You didn't just stop him. You embarrassed him." Kennedy didn't answer. Not because she disagreed, but because she wasn't proud of that part. It wasn't about embarrassment. It was about making sure Emily wasn't invisible anymore. That afternoon, she got called back to the office. This time, it wasn't disciplinary. Counselor Hughes had invited her in for something else. A question. "We've had some interest from the district," Hughes said, hands folded on her desk. "They heard about what happened. They're asking if you'd be willing to speak at the assembly Friday." Kennedy blinked. "Speak? You don't have to, but they think your perspective might help." Kennedy looked out the window. The playground was empty now, just a bench and a faded basketball rolling along the blacktop. "I'll think about it," she said. Hughes smiled. "No pressure, just consider it." Kennedy walked home with that thought sitting heavy on her shoulders. Talk? In front of everyone? That wasn't her style. She was more action than words, but something about it wouldn't leave her alone. She thought about Emily, about how quiet she'd been, how nobody had stood up for her until it was almost too late. She thought about Master Joe's words. Your voice is part of your power, too. That night, she sat at the kitchen table with her mom. "Something on your mind?" her mom asked, slicing bell peppers. Kennedy nodded. "They want me to speak about what happened." Her mom paused. "Are you scared?" "I'm not scared of talking," Kennedy said. "I just don't want to be the girl who stood up to the bully. Like I'm some hero." Her mom smiled softly. "Maybe you're not a hero. Maybe you're just what a lot of people needed to see." Kennedy stared at her plate. She picked at a piece of broccoli. "I didn't do anything special." "Sure you did," her mom said. "You did something most people wouldn't." Kennedy didn't respond, but she stopped picking at her food. Because the truth was, she knew the school didn't need another rule. It needed a reminder. And maybe her voice could be that. Friday came fast. The gym was packed. Fold-out chairs in every row. Teachers along the walls. Students crammed shoulder to shoulder, whispering, shifting, waiting. Kennedy sat near the front, hands in her lap, pulse steady, but only on the outside. She was dressed in her usual, black jeans, plain tee, sneakers with scuffed soles. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here to say something that mattered. Principal Vargas stepped to the mic first, gave a short, careful intro about community, respect, responsibility. Then he turned and nodded to her. Kennedy stood. She didn't walk fast or slow, just steady, each step like a beat. She reached the mic, looked out, and saw everything. The kids who stayed quiet on Tuesday, the ones who laughed, the ones who looked away. Emily, near the second row, sitting tall in her chair. Kennedy took a breath. "My name is Kennedy Monroe," she said, voice clear. "Some of you know me. Some of you just heard what happened." Pause. "I'm not up here to be the hero, or the tough girl, or the one who scared somebody straight." She looked around again. "I'm here because too many people saw something wrong and didn't do anything." A few heads lowered. She kept going. "On Tuesday, a girl got hurt, and for 30 minutes, no one helped her. I saw her fall. I saw people laugh. And I saw people do nothing. She glanced down, hands tight on the mic stand. I've trained for 5 years in Taekwondo. I've broken boards. I've won trophies. But none of that matters if I stay silent when it counts. Silence. Real silence. Then soft wheels. Emily was moving. Toward the front. Toward the mic. Vargas looked surprised. So did everyone else. Emily paused beside Kennedy and looked up. Can I say something? Kennedy stepped back without a word. Emily took the mic. My name is Emily Branson, she said. Her voice was shaky, but she didn't stop. I'm not here to make anyone feel bad. I'm just tired of feeling invisible. She swallowed. I didn't choose to be in this chair, but I do choose how I handle it. And on Tuesday, I needed help. Kennedy helped me, not by fighting, just by standing up. She looked around. You don't have to be strong like her. You just have to care enough to do something, say something, tell someone, sit next to someone. A few claps, then more. Kennedy didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed. She stepped back up, took the mic one last time. Kindness isn't a program, it's a choice. And next time, because there will be a next time, I hope more of you choose it. She walked back to her seat. No cheering, no standing ovation, just a quiet, honest moment. And sometimes that's louder than anything else, but even after all that, one more thing needed to happen before this could really settle. That afternoon, the school didn't buzz. It didn't chatter. It didn't do the usual Friday stuff. No hallway races, no last-minute bathroom passes, no loud countdowns to the weekend. It just breathed, like everyone was holding something they hadn't felt before, something honest. Outside, Kennedy sat on the low wall near the front steps, her backpack by her feet. The sun was still warm, but not sharp. She peeled the wrapper off a granola bar and watched cars pull up one by one. Emily rolled over, stopping right beside her. That was brave, Kennedy said. Emily raised an eyebrow. You're calling me brave? You walked up to that mic like it owed you something. Emily smiled a little. I was scared the whole time. Still did it. Emily looked down the street. My mom says what you did was amazing. She wants to meet you. Kennedy chuckled. Tell her I said hi. They sat for a second. Just two kids. No speeches. No noise. Just air between them and a quiet that finally felt okay. You think they'll remember? Emily asked. Kennedy shrugged. Some will. What about Brent? Kennedy turned her head. He'll remember. Emily looked away. I didn't want him to get expelled. He didn't, Kennedy said. But even if he had, that's not on you. I know. She paused. I just wanted him to stop. Kennedy nodded. That's all most people want, she said. To be left alone, or to be seen, one or the other. Emily pushed a loose piece of hair behind her ear. I think it's both. Kennedy smiled. Yeah, maybe it is. Down the walkway, a silver minivan pulled up. Emily's mom waved. I gotta go, Emily said. Kennedy stood up and gave her a small nod. No hug, no big moment, just real. Emily wheeled off, and Kennedy turned to head toward the buses. She didn't feel taller, or better, or proud. She just felt clearer. That what happened mattered. That she hadn't stood there for attention. That maybe next time, someone else would stand first. Because courage isn't loud. It doesn't wear a cape or break the rules for the thrill of it. Sometimes it just looks like a girl in sneakers, staring down the worst kind of cruelty and saying, not today, not here, not again. The lesson is simple. Don't wait for someone else to do the right thing. Be the one who notices, the one who speaks, the one who steps forward, even if your voice shakes or your legs feel weak. Because silence is heavy. And kindness, when it finally shows up, moves more than just one person. It can shift a whole room, a whole school, a whole system that forgot what care looks like. So be the shift. Don't wait. Stand up. If this story reminded you of someone who's ever been picked on, overlooked, or pushed aside, share it. Let them know they're seen. And if you've ever stayed silent when you should have spoken, don't beat yourself up. Just do better next time, because someone out there is watching, and they need you to care.